Welcome to the Michaelson Williams TSX podcast. I'm your host, Michaelson Williams, and today I will be speaking with real estate entrepreneur Gabriel Hamel. Before we get started, don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe to the podcast on Substack, and make sure you follow me on all social media. Your support is greatly appreciated. I'm excited to bring to you this fantastic phone conversation with Mr. Hamel, so let's get started.
This is Gabriel.
Good morning, sir. This is Michaelson Williams. How are you?
Hey, good, Michael. How you doing?
I'm doing very well, very well. Before we get started, I have to let you know, obviously, that this call is being recorded for interview purposes.
Absolutely.
Okay, wonderful. All right. So your day is good. The
Day is
sun
good,
is shining.
yeah. That's right. How about yourself?
Yes, the sun is shining, and the day is fantastic.
Good.
You know. Okay, so I have the interview questionnaire that I sent you in front of me. If you want to have it in front of you, that's fine. If you don't, it's no big deal. I also I came up with a few more questions that I thought the readers would want to know. So I'm going to work them in as we just go down the list, and we're going to just do this real simple.
Sure.
I've been on your website several times, and you've been on a bunch of podcasts. So I'm gonna let you talk because we're gonna learn from you.
Sure. No, that sounds great. That
Okay.
sounds great.
Okay. You have any questions for me before I hit you with the first one? First question.
I don't think so. Yeah,
Okay.
do your thing, and
All right.
hopefully we'll go
So
smooth.
so let's talk about where you got your start with real estate and your background and things like that.
Yeah. So I can go back even prior to buying my first property. I was always interested in business. School, like going back to high school, really wasn't too much of my thing. Like academia just wasn't something I was super interested in. I mean, I stayed in high school because of the social aspect and wrestling, and then I actually joined the Army National Guard my senior year of high school, and I didn't really have a lot of direction. And a couple years after high school, so in like 2002, I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yes.
And that was the book that really opened my eyes to this other opportunity of creating financial freedom and through real estate. And so like I knew after reading that book, even though it's not a how-to book, I knew that was going to be my path, that I was going to become financially free. I was going to do it through real estate. I started telling everybody that, hey, here's what I'm going to do. And most people thought, hey, you're crazy and you're an idiot. What makes you think you can do that?
Right.
But shortly after reading that, so that was around 2002, and in 2003, I got called up and I got sent to Iraq and Kuwait for about a year. And so, on that deployment, I was telling all my friends, like, hey, I'm going to come back. I'm going to buy real estate. I'm going to become financially free through real estate. And those were the guys that were, even though they were my friends, they were just like, what makes you think you can do that? And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I will.
So prior to this, were you actually thinking about dropping out of high school?
I wasn't thinking about dropping. I stayed in high school because wrestling was something really important to me.
Okay.
That's really what kept me there. That and just the social aspect. The sit in the classroom, listen to lecture was not. That just was not a super conducive environment for me. I just didn't learn well in that environment. I mean, I did fine. I did completely fine through high school. It wasn't a lot of interest to me. And all the teachers, parents, everyone, everyone's pushing, hey, you should go to college. Even my parents who didn't go to college, I think that was kind of the default setting, right? Like,
correct.
Hey, when you graduate high school, you should go to more school, and that just didn't seem, at all of interest to me.
Right.
And so I think society really pushes that. I was always attracted to business in some way. I mean, and just really making my own money. I mean, at 12, I had a paper route from 12 to 16. Got a job at 16. I was selling candy out of my lockers in middle school. I was selling condoms out of my locker in early high school. Just kind of just always attracted to business, and just my idea of business, was very different than what it is today. And so yeah, coming out of high school, it wasn't so much that I ever planned on dropping out of high school. It was just the academics is not what kept me there. It was definitely the social aspect of it, and then being on the wrestling team.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah. So I went on deployment. I was in Iraq and Kuwait for about a year, a little over a year, and I came back in '04, and I started looking at property, and it was a really hot market then. The bank approved me for a no money down loan, which seemed crazy. I had no job and no money at the time, and this was during the subprime. So the bank said, "Hey, we'll give you a loan." So um, I found a home, a little 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, and it was 100% financing deal. I ended up renting out 2 of the bedrooms. They refer to it now as house hacking a lot, but it just made good financial sense. I could live for less expensive than I could anywhere else by renting out 2 of the other rooms. So
I actually,
I did,
Gabriel, that's actually
yeah,
one of my questions.
sure.
There's always new terms that we get introduced to, and house hacking is one that I would love for you to elaborate on, if you would.
Yeah, so house hacking is really just the ability to take a typical property, whether it's a single family home or multifamily home, but be able to create some sort of revenue stream from it, right? So,
Okay.
maybe typically someone would buy their first property and they would just live in it and just have the utility of just living in the property, even if they don't need the other bedrooms. And so, house hacking, in the simplest form, would be similar to my first house. I bought a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. I was just one single guy, and to offset my mortgage, I rented out 2 out of 3 of the bedrooms, and that covered the majority of my mortgage. And so I was living for way less than I could have lived anywhere else, and that allowed more money to stay in my pocket. Sometimes people will do that with renting out an office space in their house, or I mean, I've even heard of people sleeping, early on, sleeping in the living room, and they rent out all of their bedrooms, and they have their entire mortgage covered. It's just really a way to offset your expenses by renting out a portion of the house.
Okay. And you had no security issues with that, or you just overcame them.
Nope, I just rented out one to my brother, one room to my brother, and one room to a friend.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna let you continue. I am going to sidetrack you a little bit to
Sure.
get
Yeah.
different ideas from you, but absolutely.
Yep.
If
No. Anytime you want to stop me, just stop me.
Okay,
So
all
I
right,
can
all
I
right,
can
great.
just keep going. So,
Okay,
um, yeah. So I did that in '05, and in '06 I did another no money down loan with the bank, and I turned that first house into a rental property, and I moved into that second house. I did a similar in '07. So by '07, I had 3 homes, and the first 2 were no money down. That third one was a 5% down deal, and and this felt pretty easy. I mean, I'm looking at this going, hey, I could buy a home every year with no money down or low money down, and I would build up a decent sized portfolio. Well, also in 2006, I had started a small nutrition store. Um,
okay,
with one of the guys that was renting a bedroom from me, and by 2008 the store wasn't making any money, so I had to shut the store down. In 2008, my first son was born, and in 2008 I also went back to the bank because I shut the store down. Son was born. I'm kind of going, oh damn, what do I do? I need some kind of income. And so I went back to the bank and said, hey, I want to buy another house. And they said, well, too bad, things have changed. We don't do these kind of loans that you were getting before. You actually need a down payment. You need to qualify. You need income. You need a job. You need all these things, none of which I had. Um, and I was so used to these easy, no money down loans that the banks were giving out to everybody. And you hear only kind of a lot of these horror stories of people kind of losing their shit in 2008 and the subprime. I
Right.
still bought well in that up market. And that first house I bought was a friend of the realtor's son. Um, the second house was because, you know, when I owned one house, I decided, hey, I'm a real estate investor. I'm going to get serious. I went and made business cards and passed them out to everyone. So that second house was found through networking. I gave my card to a guy at the gym, and I was able to still buy way below market, even in a hot market, just because I opened my mouth and said, hey, I'm an investor. Here's what I'm looking for.
Right.
But
So,
oh, go ahead.
so you knew on the first one that you had already made the commitment in your mind that you were a real estate investor. You weren't a hobbyist in real estate.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, in 2002, after reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, I mean, I was determined that this was going to be my way. And then I get deployed in '03. I don't come back till '04, and '04 is when I really start looking. And I don't buy my house until 2005. But in my mind, there was no plan B. I mean, in my mind, it was I will become financially free through real estate. I had zero interest in, getting a job or working for anybody else long term. I had no interest in going to college and, again, coming out of that working for somebody else. And so it was in my mind long before I bought that first property. And then that there was kind of that hiccup moment of, 2008 when I went back to the bank and they said, no, you actually need a large down payment, and you need a job, and you need income, and you need, proof and a history of this.
Right.
And I said, but I already have three houses. And they said, well, too bad. Guidelines have changed a lot. And so, when I shut the store down, I took a bunch of odd and end jobs. I wasn't qualified for really anything. So I was working, minimum wage jobs. I was finding help wanted ads on Craigslist. I mean, I was doing really, really anything to scrape by. My now wife was, in school, getting ready to become a nurse. And so it was kind of this decision of, hey, am I going to get serious about real estate, or am I just going to go get a low paying job and do that the rest of my life? So, kind of how the story went is I ended up taking a job in a high school special education class, and
Oh,
as a
okay.
teacher, as a teacher aide. It was a barely above minimum wage, and a few months into that job, I just was like, this is not my dream. As much as my heart goes out to these kids, this is not what I want to do. I need to get serious about real estate. And so I got very determined to try to replace the income at that job through real estate. And so every night I'd get on Craigslist. Every night I would, be looking for unlisted properties. I'd be talking to agents. I'd be talking to everybody I could. And I eventually found a seller financing deal, which seller financing has really become my bread and butter of how I started buying cash flow producing real estate. And so in 2009, I found a seller that would carry the financing. And since the banks wouldn't approve me for a loan and I needed a large down payment, I found a seller that would carry the financing. And that one deal, it was two duplexes side by side. It was 4 units. That cash flowed almost to the dollar that I was making at my low paying job.
Okay.
And so I,
Can you hold right there, Gabriel?
yep, yep,
So that was your first owner finance. Everything previous
yep.
to that was from the bank.
Yep, those first three properties um, were my really those first three properties. Even though it was during the subprime, so I don't know if you can really consider those traditional financing, but those are the only properties that I've ever purchased with traditional financing, with bank financing.
Okay.
I've
Okay.
now I've refinanced properties with bank financing, but everything I've purchased from 2009 to present has either been seller financing, private money, hard money. But from 2009 through 13, everything was seller financing.
Okay. So we're gonna go right back to your first owner financed, but I
Yep.
want to ask you, how did you approach the bank with nothing, with no money? So if our readers wanted to follow your format, how would you tell them to approach the bank with zero money?
Yep. The bank or the sellers, because the sellers became my bank.
Right.
They became, yep.
The bank first. That first initial purchase that you made, you went through a bank. How did you do
Yep.
that with zero money?
Yeah, so that was during, that was 2005, and so back then banks were giving money to anybody. So it was an 80/20 loan is what they called them, but I just went to several different banks and tried to see what the different lending options were. And so I had lenders and bankers say, no, we can't do anything. But then I made enough calls and found a lender that was willing to do a loan.
Okay.
And yeah, yeah. And the thing that was important is I wanted to make sure the property would cash flow. And so, I didn't go and buy the biggest, most expensive house that I could just because the bank would allow it. I went and bought something that financially made sense. You hear about all the people that overbought in 2004, 5, 6. So even though I was approved for a home, I wasn't out there buying something that didn't still make financial sense. I own those homes today. I actually am selling after all these years those first three properties that I ever purchased because the equity position's strong.
Okay.
Um, but where things really started building was that 2009, that first seller financing deal really showed me this new tool to buy real estate in a different way than using traditional financing. And seller financing, for for people that don't know what seller financing is, rather than getting a bank loan, you're having the sellers be the bank. They're carrying financing. So instead of getting a mortgage or a loan from the bank, they are the bank. You're making your mortgage payment directly to these sellers. And there's a lot of advantages why sellers would want to do this. And there's a lot of advantages as a buyer to do this as well. And so that first seller financing deal, it cash flowed almost to the dollar that I was making at my low paying job. And so I finished out that year and I stopped working. And so I was able to become financially free really young and really fast. I wasn't wealthy yet. I hadn't built up a large amount of wealth, but what I was able to do was replace my income through real estate, and that allowed me my time to put more deals together. So early on, I kept my expenses really low, and the income I was getting from that seller finance deal, those 4 units and my first three properties, allowed me to be and really have that first taste of financial freedom.
Right. 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 So the how did you build the trust in order to have an owner actually trust you to finance the deal? Was it all paperwork? Was it all your personality? How did you accomplish that?
Yeah, it's seller financing. I mean, it's I think like any business, it's a relationship business. It's just building a relationship with people and building that rapport. A lot of the deals I found early on were through Craigslist and just through making phone calls. And these sellers were sellers that wanted to carry financing. So it took me a few deals to realize and reflect back and go, wow, every seller who's carried financing for me, they wanted to. Because early on, I did a couple of these no money down deals. And what I found is not every seller wants the same thing. Some sellers are stuck on price. Some sellers are stuck on interest rate. Some sellers are stuck on down payment. Well, I didn't have a down payment when I got started. And so I had to find sellers that cared less about a down payment and was more stuck on either a price or interest rate or, the terms of the deal in some other way. And so I had to go find sellers that didn't care as much about the down payment, And as I built those relationships early on, I thought, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I'm able to buy property with no money down. And I need to go educate all these sellers. Like, that was my thought initially. I need to go educate and tell all these sellers the advantage of why they should carry financing and why seller financing is a good option. But then I reflected back and I realized that every seller who carried financing, they already wanted to carry financing. I never had to talk or educate a seller ever into carrying financing. There was a lot of reason they already wanted to. And I realized, well, I could spend my time and energy educating sellers on why they should carry financing, or I could spend my time and energy just getting in front of enough sellers who already understand the advantage of seller financing. And then the conversation is just around terms. What kind of terms make sense for them? And
Okay.
so, and I'm not saying it's impossible to educate someone on what seller financing is, because I just think it's a harder task when the majority of the men and women that are willing to carry financing, they're in their 60s and 70s. They've owned the asset for a long time. And I think explaining this idea of seller financing to someone in their, say, 70s who've never heard of it probably sounds pretty foreign. But having a conversation with someone in their 60s and 70s who's either purchased a property that way before and already know the advantages is a way simpler task than having to re-educate somebody on a whole new idea.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. Um, so if you had and obviously you're teaching people how to duplicate what you've done, correct? Am I
Yep.
correct? Okay, so if you had one or two nuggets to give the newbie, the
Yep.
person who the person who's thinking about it, but they have no clue and they're not sure of anything, their confidence is down or anything like that. You have a couple things that you would tell that person.
Yeah. The biggest thing that I tell anyone when they're getting real estate in general is they need to let people know what they're looking for. And, um, I found a lot of my deals just because I've opened my mouth and said, hey, here's what I'm looking for. And nobody's going to bring you a deal if they don't know that you're looking for property. So early on, there was a specific neighborhood that I was interested in, and I was looking at small multifamily in that neighborhood. So that's the conversations I would have. I would say, hey, I'm looking for small multifamilies in this neighborhood. And I would keep having those conversations. Hey, I'm looking for small multifamilies in this neighborhood. Same is true when I bought a couple mobile home parks last year. I opened my mouth and started telling people, hey, I'm looking for mobile home parks. And then that became part of the conversation, and that led to um, purchases. But if people don't know what you're looking for, they're not going to assume, hey, this guy or this gal are looking for a home in this area, I should go let them know. And there's so many times when I've talked to people that are just getting started who they say, oh my gosh, as soon as I started telling people that what I'm looking for, I had no idea this guy I worked with owned 3 rental properties. I had no idea my neighbor owned rental property and was interested in selling. And so when it's on the forefront of your mind and you start talking about it, it's amazing how many people in your circle or within your network are involved in real estate in some way. But it's not until you open your mouth will those deals start to flow your way.
Right, right. Did you so during this process, okay? Did
Yep.
you did you take any formal real estate courses or anything like that?
No, I didn't. So I read a lot. I read a lot of books, and really most of it was just there really wasn't any book on seller financing either. It was just something I had read briefly about, and a lot of it was just asking questions and trial and error. I mean, I just learned as I went. And the biggest thing, really specific to seller financing, is I guess really with anything, you just don't know what you don't know. And so These early deals, the biggest advantage is, and what I found early on, you can get as creative as you want. So when you go to a bank, if you understand just basic bank financing, that seller financing is that with a lot more creativity, so and a lot more flexibility. So when you go to a bank, the bank's telling you, hey, here's how you qualify. I need you to have this down payment. This is the interest rate. These are the terms of the deal. You either qualify or you don't. So when you go into a bank, they're telling you what you need to qualify and what the terms of the deal are. Seller financing is truly as creative as you as the buyer and the seller can get. So the down payment is negotiable. The interest rate, it can be interest only. It can be direct principal. You can delay payments. You know, the interest rate. Every aspect of the deal is as creative as you and the seller can get. It isn't this just cut and dry. These are the terms. It's really about what are the seller's needs. What do they need? And can you provide them terms that work for them and for you as the buyer? And in a lot of cases, you can. In a lot of cases, these properties are owned by really good people, but they're not great at property management. So these properties are poorly managed. They're a lot of times under rented because these sellers have other jobs or businesses they're running, and there's some deferred maintenance. There's some work that needs to be done to kind of get the property up to rent ready and be able to actually demand those higher rents. And so those are the biggest advantages as a buyer, just that flexibility. And sellers, usually are not stuck on all three of those things. It's usually down. I think I said this before. Usually down payment, interest rate, or price. And so if you're able to give them, say the price that they want, but they're flexible on what the interest rate is and the down payment, you can create that true win-win scenario where, again, a bank is telling you this is the terms of the deal. There is no flexibility there. And so, I never walk away from a deal feeling like I've won and they've lost. It really is a true win-win. I ask them, the negotiation process is literally me saying, hey, what kind of terms are you interested in? And then I just shut up and listen. And if I can give them enough of what they want and still make the deal work for me, that's that true win-win. We both walk away from the table feeling like we're happy with the deal.
And does that most of the time look like them getting their full asking?
Not always. So it's just, again, sellers are typically stuck on the down payment, interest rate, or price, and it's rare that I find a seller that's stuck on all three. And so, early on, I was very down payment sensitive because I just didn't have a down payment. And so I looked at the deal going, if I can be cash flow positive, if I'm putting no money down, I need the property to cash flow. That's an infinite return, right? That if I'm bringing no money to the table, will the rents that are coming in today, and even though there was upside potential, I always looked at, will the rents today and the way I structure the deal today, will it cash flow from day one? And that's how I took on all those early properties from 2009 through 13. They had to be cash flow positive. Now, every one of those properties had upside. They were all poorly managed. They were all under rented. They had some deferred maintenance, and there was a lot of room to improve the value of the properties. But I never banked on that. I never looked at appreciation as I need the property to increase in value, or I need the property to go up in rent for the deal to work. I
Okay.
liked having that as a bonus, but it was always, does this cash flow today? And so I would structure the deal to do just that. And the upside was there. I just never relied on it.
That's super important. I understand that. Let me ask you so you see a property, you make an offer, you can get it. It's owner financed. Now the maintenance.
Yep.
Were you doing most of the maintenance yourself, or were you hiring that out? And how does that equate with profit margins?
Yeah. So early on, I did manage my own properties. Now I don't. I have 175 units. So I knew early on I didn't want to be in property management. I love putting deals together. I love, you know, talking to people with owners, with negotiating, with finding the deals and structuring the deals and getting creative with the deals. The property management I don't enjoy. And early on, for several years, I did manage my own properties, and it was a learning process. It only concreted more so that I didn't want to manage property. I mean, I had at 17 units is when I turned everything over to property management, and it was 10 o'clock at night. I had young kids at home. I'm trying to fix a toilet, which I knew very little about, and I had to call a plumber anyway. So I had spent my time and my money, and that was a day that I decided, okay, it's time to turn things over to property management, and that was a great decision. It now freed up my time to go put more deals together, and which is what I enjoy doing, and is where my time was better spent, was putting deals together, not trying to fix toilets.
Okay. So, does the work that you do, in your opinion, influence better social and economic positions for people? Let me back up a little bit. Why? Sure. This might be more important. Why mobile home parks?
Sure. So, yeah, my last couple more recent purchases have been mobile home parks. Part of that is I think there's an opportunity in that space. The multifamily space, the returns were being condensed down to almost nothing. There's a lot of competition there. There's a lot of competition in the mobile home park space now too. But I just felt like the returns in the multifamily space was tough. I was seeing a lot of people pay a lot more for a smaller return. I think the mobile home park space is fairly recession proof, and the parks that I purchased, they just had a lot of upside potential as far as rents hadn't been increased in 5 years, utilities weren't being built back. There were some improvements that needed done to the properties, and so it just fit that model that I was looking for of poorly managed, under rented, deferred maintenance. Mobile home parks too can be tough to finance, and so a lot of the sellers of mobile home parks are very familiar with seller financing and have either purchased the property previously with seller financing, and are very open to that conversation. So that really fit into what I was doing as well.
Okay. So you're so the have you or do you have or in the past, what were your influences or people who influenced your journey in real estate? Real estate, health, wealth, all of those things. If you could tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, early on, as I mentioned before, it was, Rich Dad Poor Dad. So, Robert Kiyosaki, in his book. And then I had read several other of the Robert Kiyosaki books, Cash Flow Quadrant, Advanced Guide to Real Estate, a lot of the other books kind of in that series. Those are my kind of my early ones. And I really just implemented those things. So there wasn't, social media wasn't as vibrant as it is today. So I didn't have that, Bigger Pockets, which is a large platform and the number one real estate podcast in the world. Those weren't around when I got started. So a lot of it really was just doing it. I would read different things online. I was literally just searching, Googling random things, just learning as I went. So that, I definitely have to say, Robert Kiyosaki was a big influence early on, as far as real estate and the wealth building.
So you weren't the a book a week guy.
No, I
Okay.
wasn't. I mean, I didn't read, like, that book was the first book I really read word for word, cover to cover, and then, I'm looking at those books right now. There's a whole bunch of books in that series of, Retire Young, Retire Rich was a Robert Kiyosaki book.
Right.
Some of his advisors, Ken McElroy wrote the Advanced Guide to Real Estate and the ABCs of real estate investing. And so those were really the ones I read early on. I later got more into the personal development side of things and really started focusing on how do I grow as a person, not just financially, which really had a big impact on my life as well. Um, and what else? You asked about health and such.
Yeah, because you're obviously super into health and wellness and fitness and all that. So how does that work with the rest of your life?
Yeah, I mean, really, I want to thrive and grow in every area of my life. I mean, health, wealth, happiness, my family, it's all really important to me. Early on, I was very focused on the wealth building side of things, and um, it's I wasn't putting the time and energy into these other areas of my life. Like health was always important to me. There was like every book that I would read or anything that I would do, my mind was always consumed with, like how do I grow this real estate empire. Um, and it wasn't until kind of had this realization of like, hey, I really need to focus my time and energy on all these other things that are important to me. Because a lot of it came down to like, reflection going, why do I want to be financially free? Why do I want, to build wealth through real estate? And it really, for me, came down to time. I really wanted to own my time. I wanted to, it wasn't this, I want to swim in a pile of money. It was, hey, I want to have a life of where I'm able to do what I want to do, when I want to do it, how I want to do it. I want to be able to spend time with my family. I want to be able to travel. I want to be able to, work out in the middle of the day if I want to. And so my life really shifted from focusing on just building wealth to how do I become the best version of myself? How do I, how do I become, the best father I can, the best husband, stay healthy. And so it's just a lifelong journey that I'm dedicated to. And it really, on the forefront of my mind, I really bring everything back to time. How do my decisions today, or how does a decision I make affect my time? Because I think that's the most valuable asset we have. And I'm able to build my business in a way that I don't have to sacrifice my lifestyle. I don't have to sacrifice my time with my family. I don't have to sacrifice my health. And I think the temptation and society really pushes that grind, 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 work, work
Yes.
hard 100 hours a week, and you're not working hard enough. And I think I felt a little of that early on, but I realized that working more isn't always the most productive. And oftentimes people seem to create something so big that it actually takes them away from what they were hoping to build in the first place. And I get in a lot of conversations with people that have built up a significant level of wealth, and or they're really chasing that financial freedom. And when I ask why is that financial freedom important to you? Which is the same question I ask myself. And it almost always comes back to time. They're building what they're building because they want to have more time with their family. They want to, more time with their kids. They want to be able to travel, or they want to be able to take care of their elderly parents, or they want to give back to some cause. And every time it comes back to wanting more time. And oftentimes they've built themselves into a corner where they've built something that actually has taken them farther away from what they were searching for, what they were trying to get in the first place. And so that's why I, started the conversation on time freedom of what's really important to people, because that's what it always came back to when I would ask people, why do you want financial freedom? It always came back to they wanted more time in something else. The financial aspect of it was just the vehicle. Real estate for me, I love real estate. I enjoy doing it, but it's what it allows me to do outside of real estate that I'm really after.
Okay, now it's time to teach on that, because that's very, very profound and very important, because psychologically, are you still there?
Yeah, yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Psychologically, everyone, it seems like it may be curbing off a little bit now, but everyone seems to be focused on the grind,
Yep,
right?
yep.
And so how can they avoid the grind pitfall while, in your opinion, while
Yep.
they're trying to get that time that they're actually seeking?
Yeah, I think, having it be really crystal clear on the things in your life that are most important to you, and then making sure that the activities you're doing actually line up with those things. And I'm not saying that you don't have to make sacrifices early on. I mean, there's sometimes you have to make those short-term sacrifices for that long-term gain. I just think that, if say health is important to you, right? Like, we all have 30 minutes or an hour a day. Like, we make that time. You can get up earlier, stay up late, later, whatever it might be, if that's important to you. But or if spending time with your family is important to you, then going to work before the kids are up and coming home after the kids are asleep, you haven't allowed that time. So I think just having that in the forefront of your mind of okay, what's actually important to me, and am I spending my time there? Because oftentimes we just push that to a later time, right? Like, I'll do that later, I'll do that later, I'll do that later, and all of a sudden that time has passed, and that time that you said you were going to spend with your family, you said you were going to work out, it's 10 years later. And so the thing that helped me is just, early on I realized what's important to me, and that's on the forefront of my mind. So when I make a decision, I think about, how does this affect my time? So when when the kids were young and I'm managing my own properties, that was one of those things. It was 10 o'clock at night, I'm fixing a toilet, and I'm going, this is time to start having property management manage my properties. One of those questions was, do I start my own property management company? But I don't want employees, and I don't want to manage people in that aspect. So I chose not to start a property management company, because that would take away from these other areas of my life that are more important. It would actually take time away from my family. It would take time away for me to be able to have the freedom of time that I have. And so I think just getting clear on what's important to you, and make sure you're really spending your time there, and making sure the activities you choose to do actually align with those things that are important.
Fantastic. Some of these may sound a little repetitive, but I'm just trying to get like a full map of your psychology behind
Sure, sure.
the moves that you made in life and in real estate.
Yeah. No, I know it's hard to not go all over the place. I can go off on tangents on any on
no,
any of these
no,
things. So I
no,
hope
that
I'm giving you enough good information to.
no, that's great.
Yeah.
This is this will be plenty information to put together something. Hopefully, it'll be on my end to put together something
Yeah.
absolutely fantastic. So the next question uh, is how. Let me put it this way: how do you seek out new opportunities in real estate, and how has that changed, or if it's changed from the beginning to now?
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good question, because I think that sometimes people tend to overcomplicate it. When I look back on my real estate deals that I've done, and when I look back on the best deals I've done, it 100% comes down to relationships, and not just the seller financing deals, but it's building genuine relationships. I mean, that very first deal I did was off market. It was a friend of the realtor's son. That second deal was because I opened my mouth and handed out a business card. My most recent mobile home park purchase was a guy that I had reached out to 10 years previously, just because he was a developer, and I just admired his work. I had someone call me the other day I hadn't talked to in 20 years. We went to high school together, but he had seen some of the stuff I was putting out on social, which isn't even usually directly real estate related. But his dad's selling 48 units in town in a neighborhood that I like. It's off market, and but he knew that I'm in real estate, that I invest in real estate, and reached out and said, "Hey, are you interested in these properties?" And so, whether it's agents and brokers or just people in my circle, it's just letting people know what you're looking for, and it really comes down to to relationships. And I don't go into any relationship with, any agenda of what am I trying to get from this person, or what can I get out of this person. It's just a genuine interest in building relationships. Some relationships will turn into friendships, some will turn into business deals. But 100% of the time, the specific to real estate, those best deals are because of relationships that I've built.
Fantastic. So that's another point that I believe is super important, because I've noticed that younger people, and I work with younger people, and I'm like you. I like to put deals together, and I'm finding that people, whether it's because of the internet or whatever, they're always you always get this odd feeling that they're not really into you. They're only into
Yeah,
what you can do for them. No,
sure. Yep. Yep.
I mean, so when you talk about relationships and not having an agenda, I mean, I think that's absolutely fantastic.
Yep. Yep. And I think it's, there's not just one way to do it, but I think that just being genuine and showing a genuine interest in people, it goes a long way.
Absolutely. So, so how do you cultivate your real estate base to make sure, and you kind of hit on this early, but to make sure that it's profitable, and have you had any real estate buys that weren't profitable and you had to dump them or anything like that?
No, I haven't. So I have not. A question I get asked a lot, is that is there any property that I ever regret buying? And there is not a single property that I purchased that I regret buying. Some properties have produced more cash flow or have increased in value more than others. But one thing that I learned early on when I started buying properties was that cash flow first, as I mentioned before, um, because it's not relying on appreciation. And I had met several people early on who just lost everything in 2008, 2009 because they were betting on appreciation. They were buying properties that the only way they penciled, the only way they made sense is if they increased in value, or the only way that property would work is if rents were increased. And they were basing everything on this pro forma number. Well, I've never seen a pro forma that didn't look great. Like, that's what a pro forma is. It's,
Right.
creating this picture of here's the best case scenario if everything goes perfectly. And so, as I said before, it's always been the cash flow first. I mean, I like properties with upside. I know the market, and the sub markets really well, where I know really well where I'm at. And so, I buy properties all the time that have a ton of upside potential. I know the rents are low. I know the properties can be cleaned up. I know there's ways to force value in that property. I just didn't put myself in a position, where I was only speculating. I mean, people can make a ton of money in speculation. They can also lose it. And so when I was buying in 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, that was my rule. The property had to cash flow, because that's the one thing that I knew was certain. Not would it cash flow if I increase rents? Not would this property be worth more once I increase rents or clean the property up? It's, does it cash flow today? And that's really been a principle that I've stuck with is, will the property make money today when I buy it?
And how does that look? If you're not doing curb appeal, and you don't have you're not looking at upfront maintenance or anything like that, how are you purchasing, knowing that it's cash flow positive before anything?
Yep. I'm looking at the real numbers. So when I'm talking with a seller, I ask them for their, if a lot of times, if it's managed by property management, they'll have profit loss statements. But a lot of these properties early on were managed by the owners, and so I would ask for their schedulees. I would get copies of their returns and base everything on the real numbers. Base
Okay.
everything on what's the property been doing the last several years, and if nothing else changed, would that be the most likely outcome? And in most cases, yeah. Now I was able to do things to improve the property and get the rents up and decrease some expenses, but I really just based my numbers on looking at those schedulees, looking at those returns and saying, okay, here's what the property's really done the last 2-3 years. The day that I close on this, if nothing else changes, will this be cash flow positive?
Okay. So now let me see. So let's talk about social media because I thought um, I thought actually that your followers would be much higher because of your message, your enthusiasm. How do you navigate social media in your business?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I wasn't on social media at all for like years, and I just had no reason to be on there. So I didn't have Facebook, I didn't have Instagram, anything. And about, gosh, I don't know, a year and a half ago or so, I got on social media, and a lot of it was because I wanted to give back. I wanted to be able to, share that message of the value of time freedom, and I wanted to encourage others to that were on a path or were interested on a path of financial freedom, to do that. There's so much negative stuff out there online. There's so much negative stuff on social media, and which is really why I wasn't on there at all. And then I'd get in these conversations with people who were interested in real estate or interested in creating time freedom in their life or financial freedom. And I realized, hey, there's this huge platform, social media, where really anyone can get on there and share their message. And so I got on there and just started just started winging it. Just started putting like a video a day up there and just trying to create something positive. Like I'm not selling anything. I don't do any kind of paid teaching or paid coaching. I'm not a real estate agent or broker. Um, you know I really just want to encourage others who are interested in a life of fulfillment, a life of time freedom, financial freedom, to be able to do that. And so I got on social media really just to encourage others. It's why I started doing a lot of different podcasts, and I've had the privilege to be invited on a lot of different podcasts. But it's 100% about I just want to give back. I mean, different people have said different things, or different books have encouraged me or impacted my life, and I got on social media simply to um, if I can touch one life, if I can make a difference in one person's life, then I feel like I'm doing the right thing. And so that's why I'm on there. That's why I try to post something positive each day, just to encourage others who really want it, who really want to live a fulfilled life, not just financially, but a life in an abundance of family and friends and adventure, and also finances, that it's doable for them.
And that's something that I noticed as I'm looking around, trying to find you all over the internet, in your older stuff and things like that. Is I don't see, or I didn't find, even from your website, I didn't find any courses that you're selling. I didn't find. So is your, and maybe I didn't read your website. I mean, there's 5 pages on your website, but I didn't see any offerings of anything that's a financial gain for you.
Correct. Yeah. It's For me, it's 100% about giving back and encouraging others. And you know, er, you know, early on, I got on the Bigger Pockets podcast. It's the number one real estate podcast. I had a lot of people reach out. There's a few people that encouraged me to do some paid coaching, and I had thought about going that route, and I had offered that to some people. And then I realized like that just didn't sit right with. And there's nothing wrong with paid coaching. That's just not what I wanted to pursue. But one thing that I really enjoyed doing is I would get on these, at no cost, these 30-minute video chats with people where they could just ask questions. And so I've done over 100 video calls this last year, and it's been really rewarding for people who have reached out. I mean, I respond to anyone who messages me, anyone that reaches out that wants to, whether learn more about how to create time freedom in their life or who wants to build financial freedom through real estate. And honestly, some of the most rewarding things are when I get on a 30-minute call with someone, and then they message back later saying, "Hey, I bought my first real estate deal," or I quit my job because I'm financially free now, or "Hey, I'm doing my first seller financing deal." Like that's why I do it, because if I can make a positive impact in just one life, I really feel like I'm doing something important.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, we're getting close.
All right.
So obviously, I put something in the questionnaire about teamwork and family, and I know that family is super important to you.
Very much. Yep.
You so early on versus now, when you're managing your family time, uh, is it family first, business first? It may sound like a weird question, but it's an honest one. Um,
Yep.
how do you manage that as far as creating that time and actually having that time?
Yeah, it's family first, and as I said previously, I'm not willing to take something on that obviously sometimes business is gonna take some of my time, but I've created and structured things in a way where I don't have to spend very much time each week. I mean, maybe a couple hours focusing on anything business related, and at this point, I don't put anything on my plate that I don't want to put on my plate, and
Okay.
so it's family first. I mean, we're about to go, travel the country for 3 or 4 months. And it would be easy for me to say, oh no, I could. Or I guess it wouldn't be easy, but I could say, oh no, I need to be here to buy more properties or whatnot. But I can do almost everything remotely, and for me, spending that time with my family, that's time I don't get back. And so it's definitely family first. When I look at potential new deals, I consider that, like, how does this property affect my time in all these other areas? I just don't put things on my plate that are going to take away from these other things that are important to me.
Okay, that's wonderful. Um, so I'm gonna take one step back and ask again because I didn't find anything. Are Do you have any paid services? And then I'm going to ask you: is there a book in the works?
I have, yeah, nothing. I have no paid services. Don't sell anything. I have no paid coaching, no nothing. I have considered writing a book specific to seller financing, because there's not one, and a lot of people have asked if there's a book on specific to seller financing and real estate, and I have toyed with the idea of writing one. So we'll see.
Okay, all right. Um, let's see.
And possibly a book on time freedom. I mean, that's just, again, that's why I get on social and talk about that. I just feel like it's a conversation that's not being had.
Okay, okay. Um, what are your goals? That leads right into uh, what are your business goals for the next I don't know, couple of years or something? And obviously, if there's a book in the works or an idea of a book in the works, that would be one of your goals. But as far as property acquisition and things like that, what's your goal there?
Yeah, so as I said before, I'm at about 175 rental units. I plan on taking that to about 300 units in the next year and a half, and that's the plan with as far as rental units. Yeah, I have some other goals around the value of the properties and what I want to do. I'm selling a few of the lower producing properties that have smaller cash flow but higher appreciation, just because that's where the market is, and I'll move some of those funds into some larger deals. So I'm looking at actually taking down less deals, but just larger deals moving forward.
Okay. Fantastic. That is the end of the interview, and except for so your Instagram.
Yep.
Everybody can find you at your Instagram address and your website. Is there any other places?
Those are probably the best two. Yeah, those are the best two places to find me. Yeah.
All right, Gabriel. This has been amazing for me, for sure.
Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate you doing it over the phone. I felt like I could give you more info. Hopefully that was enough info and what you needed to do what you're doing.
Definitely, we're gonna put the article together and send it to you. Get your approval. Make any changes if any, and then we're gonna run it.
Great. Sounds great.
And like I said in the email, I'm gonna be sending you some. We want to do an ad for you as well. But because you're not selling anything, I have to think about
right.
how to do an ad for you. But we'll do something. We'll do something.
Yeah. But awesome.
But thank you very much. This has been an amazing experience, and you're an awesome guy for sure.
Oh, well, I appreciate it, and I appreciate the kind words, and thank you for your time as well. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day. Thank you for listening to the Michaelson Williams TSX podcast, where we focus on everything true success. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I look forward to bringing you more fantastic interviews with people who are shaping the future. This episode of the Michaelson Williams TSX podcast was brought to you by Gold Phoenix Crypto, creating courses to help you build your crypto portfolio, and Map Magazine, the magazine for the true success seeker like you. Don't forget to support the podcast if you like the content, and link up with me on all social media. Thank you for joining the Michaelson Williams True Success Expert podcast. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.